finger rolls and then put the dough on them and then clip them so that they look nice and pretty, like in the photo on the side. But it was definitely worth it. And I learned how to make all these different recipes, and I got to bring them home in my cute little recipe book and make them for my family. So it was definitely one of the best experiences while I was there.
Yum. So Kerby, when are you coming over? I love those.
They are so good. I haven't made the gazelle horns since I was in Morocco because those take a lot of time, and also I need certain ingredients that we don't really have here. They're not super common in order to make them. Also, with the Moroccan bread that I learned how to make there, they have live yeast, and my host mom also had live yeast. And I've never really done a lot of cooking before Morocco. So I came home, I tried to make Moroccan bread for my mom. It was like 2 weeks after I got back. And I was like, oh, mom, you have to try this bread. It's so good. It's the best bread I've ever had. And I follow my recipe. I use the yeast and the flour and everything. And but I also halved the recipe. And it turns out they had active yeast, whereas I used active dry yeast. I didn't activate it before I cooked it, so the bread didn't rise at all. And I also doubled the salt because I have the recipe for everything but the salt. So I made some pretty bad Moroccan bread, but I have made it successfully since then.
It's hard to make, and again, bread is such an important staple. And oftentimes in the little towns, you'll see kids going with like a piece of wood and 4 or 5 little dough balls of bread on it, and they're going to the local oven because they don't have one in their house. And then the baker puts it in there. They pay them just a tiny bit of money to bake their bread for them, and then the kid goes back with the baked bread, and it's fresh and it's still hot when it gets there. Oh, yum. So, Bryson Keltner has a question for you, Kerby. Shall I read it?
Yes, please.
Bryson says he will never forget traveling through the Atlas Mountains to camel trek in the Sahara. Kerby, what experience in Morocco sticks out as your favorite?
Hi, Bryson. That is a very hard question. I think probably just living with the host family and getting that connection. Both my host siblings were younger, and I'm the baby of my entire family, the youngest of all of them, even like my cousins. So I've never had that sibling connection before. I've never had like a host sister, a younger sister. And so we got to talk about, boys and love and like racism in the US, having really mature conversations with them. And my host brother was learning the same Arabic grammar structures that I was. So we got to study together as well. So just that whole experience of living with a host family.
That's cool. Thanks, Kerby.
Ustad Garwan!
Awesome.
Kefta tagine is my favorite too. Even though I'm a vegetarian now, it was pretty good when I had it in Morocco.
I love it. We're going to have to make that together sometime.
All right, Katie Bush has a question. She says, did you find that there was a lot of variety in day-to-day meals when in Morocco? We eat so many different cuisines in the US on a regular basis, so I'm always curious about this.
Wow, that's a great question. One thing that we've largely forgotten in the United States is that there are seasons, and with seasons come different foods. And so, in Morocco, you have a lot of geographic differences, and then you have these seasonal differences. So that brings a lot of diversity. Then you have, I remember a Berber woman and an Arab woman arguing over who invented bread. And the Berber woman said, well, of course it was Berbers, because Berbers run all the patisserie, which is a French word, the Berbers run all the patisserie, and patisserie is where you go to buy your bread. So Berbers bread, which I always thought was hysterical because they're talking about a French bakery. But anyway, so there's also a lot of other influences on the food. So not you have these seasonal differences, you have these regional differences, but then of course there's also a lot of French influence, there's Spanish influence, there's Chinese, there's Indian, there's all kinds of things. And then the other thing is, a lot of Moroccans leave the country. They go to France, to Italy, to Germany, Canada, the United States, and then they send money home to their family. So when they come back, they're bringing these different culinary traditions back. And then, of course, they put their own little Moroccan spin on it. So you wind up with some really, really interesting foods.
When I was in Morocco, I tried a lot of different new foods for the first time, including like chickpeas. I had hummus, the smashed chickpea version, but I never had whole chickpeas. And also like couscous, I tried that for the first time, and really it's expanded my palate. And all of that made me realize, for years I wanted to be a vegetarian. And it wasn't until I went to Morocco that I realized I can be a vegetarian. I can do this and try all of these different foods and incorporate them into my diet at home.
Wonderful.
So we have a question,
and
it says, did either of you ever try pastilla? I did not.
I have.
What is pastilla, John?
So pastillas, it's kind of flat. It's a really interesting thing. It's like, it's not bread. It's almost puff pastry that is stuffed with oftentimes a combination of sweet and savory and then spices. And the best is pigeon. So they'll do pigeon in there, but it's often done with chicken or other things. It's minced up and it's divine. And it almost tastes like a dessert. So, and also, Louis, I just want to really tip my headphones to Louis, because, and I think Kerby may have a thing to say. I'm hoping that sometime we can do one of these together, and Louis can show us how to cook Moroccan food, because he has a channel. He's one of our Arabic professors from Morocco. He's awesome.
Yes, last semester we actually did a virtual cooking event for the Arabic Club, where Ustad Gurwan taught us how to make harira soup. It was great.
So Wesley Ann Watkins asks, what is one spice you learned to use in Morocco that you continue to use while cooking here in the United States?
For me, it's not really a spice. It's like I learned that I liked a lot of different spices, but I haven't really. I guess actually cumin. I have started cooking so much more with cumin ever since I was there.
Yeah, I remember going, when I first went, being kind of disappointed because I like really spicy, hot spicy food. And they don't really do hot food in Morocco. And, it has a lot of spice in it, but it's not hot. But my favorite is this called Ras Al Hanout. Hanout, as said before, is a little shop. And shopkeepers will make their own little blend of spices, like those shops the spice shops that we saw earlier. They'll also have their own special blend, right? And Ras Al Hanout means the head of the shop. And so it's their special blend. And, I source mine from a place called Savory Spice in Denver, which is pretty good, but it's not as good as Zaki, who was my local honey. Are there any other questions? Kerby, I have one more for you.
Okay.
Did you feel safe when you were in Morocco?
Yes, there were times where I felt unsafe, but I think that it was more warranted out of my own fears and biases. Um, but I would tell people I feel safer in Morocco than I do sometimes in Bowling Green or in big cities in the U.S. People were always helpful. I took a cab to school every day, and I would just speak in Arabic with the taxi drivers, and even if you don't speak Arabic or French, you can get around pretty well even with English. A lot of people speak English there. But I never really felt unsafe in Morocco the whole time I was there. And I think that everyone should visit Morocco. It's one of the most diverse countries in the world. We were talking about the geography of it, and that's something that I like to talk about a lot. You can go to the desert, you can go to the ocean, you can go to the mountains, waterfalls. It's incredible how much diversity there is in this one country. We found monkeys in these like gorgeous trees that looked like it was in the middle of the Appalachian Mountains while I was there. It's beautiful.
Yeah, it really is. And I'm so grateful that I took a risk, and after I left in the middle of my graduate program to go to Morocco in the Peace Corps and to teach from Nebraska, right? And if I hadn't done that, I certainly wouldn't be here with you today, Kerby. It has added so much to my life, and I'm really grateful for that. So, I'm so happy. One of the things that really excited me about coming to Western Kentucky was the Arabic language program, and what a fine program it is. And, I've met so many wonderful students like you, Kerby, who have started taking Arabic while they're here and have taken the big risk and got on a plane to explore someplace that is totally different, and are willing to share that. I want to thank you, Kerby.
Thank you for having me. This has been really great to reminisce over Morocco. I can't never stop talking about it.
I can't, I have to say I can't either, and it was such a delight, talking to you about it. Just so many memories came back, and I can't wait till we can get together and talk about Morocco and have some Moroccan food together. And I can't wait to have some Moroccan food with Louis. Maybe we'll have you guys over or something. That'd be fun. Do you want to should we tackle this last question?
Yeah, that's fine.
Let's do it. So I'm going to ask, so Susan Hoffmeister Dordoni asks, did you need to learn to comport yourself differently as a woman, especially in public, as opposed to in the US?
I came prepared to do that. I don't think I brought any shorts with me. I brought loose pants and shirts that would cover my shoulders. But when I got there, I found that it was more about respecting the culture and the cultural differences versus having to it wasn't because I needed to cover myself for any reason. It was because I was just respecting the cultural differences there. And I would see Moroccan women walking around, and again, I was in Rabat, which is a more modern city, but I would see them walking around in shorts and tank tops. There was a clothing store by my school with, it looked just like Forever 21 clothes that we would see here in the US. And even the men in my program, it was weird for men to wear shorts as well. They encouraged you wear jeans because that's just what's culturally normal. And the more that you fit in, especially if you're going to be there for a long time, like I was there for 2 months and I didn't want to face any issues. And so I just prepared myself beforehand of I'm going to be respectful to the culture that's there, and dress how I think is appropriately. I had a dress that did come to my knees, but I thought, oh, I need to wear leggings under it, and so I did. But then I found that wasn't really necessary, and I never had to cover my hair or anything like that. And I think that no, I didn't really have to act that differently than I do here in the U.S. But it was more when I did, it was more about respect for the culture and not out of fear or anything like that.
That's great. Well, we have one more question.
I think this is a good one to finish on. So Fatima asks, she said, glad you got to visit my country, and then she asked, what's your favorite city and why?
So I'm gonna, it's hard to say one, but I'm gonna give two. El Jadida, where I lived, has got to be my favorite city because it's home. Essaouira, though, which is further down the coast. So the old name for my city was Mazagan. The old name for Essaouira is Mogador. And it, like El Jadida, it had a Portuguese fortified city, and it's beautiful. It's on the coast. There's an island off, and then there was a Casbah. And in 1962, when they had an earthquake, half the Casbah went into the ocean. Jimi Hendrix tried to buy it. And he wrote a song called "Castles in the Sand" about Essaouira. But it is such a just incredibly beautiful place. But El Jadida has to be my favorite place. How about you? What's your favorite?
For me, I have to go with Chefchaouen. It's known as the Blue City, and it's not because of how beautiful the city is, though it is incredibly beautiful. But my whole program, we went together and we kind of broke off into little groups and we were exploring the city, and just every time we would all find each other again. And I've never experienced anything like that before or since, where, you know, 4 of us would go one way and 4 of us would go the other way, and then 10 minutes later we'd all reconverge in the same spot when we're just like, oh, where is so-and-so? And then just, we're all together again. And you could get lost down these little alleyways and find your way back, and always come back together. It was magical.
That's wonderful. Well, Kerby, thank you again. It's such a delight to share, you know, our little travels together, and I'm so happy, you know, to have had the opportunity to meet you. And again, I'm so grateful for the Arabic program here and the opportunity that affords, you know, Kerby and so many other students. So thank you very much for joining us for Food Trotters. We look forward to our next episode where we explore the world with our mouths.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone. Bye, Kerby. Thank you.
Bye, John.
Assalamu.
Masalama.